You are listening to the Colts Report and kinda Greg versus Will versus the world here, only on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Welcome, Colts fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report for the Colts Report with Will and Dave Retherford. Today, just with Will and myself, your host, Greg Mengelt. Here to talk some Colts camp, some big news coming out of it, and we're not going to have Greg versus Will versus the world this week because we're preparing for the start of season 3. Don't have time to put all the graphics together, but we will be doing that in a couple of weeks. The first week of high school football is when we always start our new seasons. So we decided we're going to kind of do both here and let everybody on the Colts Report know kind of what we do on Greg versus Will versus the world, which is debate the future and get points based on who is correct. So we're going to do that with some Colts topics today. Well, the score is not going to be, it's embarrassing to me. 14-3 is the score right now. There are all kinds of outstanding points, and you're ahead in most of them, and it's just really embarrassing. But here we go, talking some Colts. The big buzz out of the Colts camp is Daniel Jones. Looks every bit as good as Daniel Jones looked in camp last year when he was the buzz of camp, and then came out slinging the first half of the season. First of all, are you buying it?
Yeah, I think that there's no reason to say that he can't be as good or better than he was last year. It's going to be a second year in the offense. I think that always helps with the continuity of having the same play caller, having the same playbook. I think that you're going to see week 1 playbook unlocked by Daniel Jones being back in a way that, I feel like most first year in an offense quarterbacks maybe start the season with 50 to 65% of the playbook available to them week 1 because you add more install time as the season goes in. You game plan and scheme in different ways. I feel like with Daniel Jones coming back, especially getting to watch the offense operate from a bird's eye view last year through his recovery process following his Achilles surgery, I get this feeling that we're talking about 85% of the playbook being available. And that is, to me, exciting because I think it unlocks an element of Tyler Warren that we maybe did not get to see a whole lot of last year. I think it unlocks the ability for Jonathan Taylor to perhaps get the ball in space more. They didn't utilize him in the screen game a ton last year. I'm just curious to see what the evolution of this offense looks like with the addition of Mo Alley Cox back into the offense, with him being re-signed, with the addition of Drew Ogletree. Does he become a bigger part of this offense in 12, 13 personnel? Those are all questions we're not going to know.
We said on the Colts Report a couple of weeks ago with Will and Dave that that's a really good tight end room.
I think it is a really good tight end room. They have a little bit of everything. They had weaknesses there for years, and I think Tyler Warren came in and shored up what was maybe a bottom 4 tight end room into probably a top 8, top 12, probably at the floor, just because of how good Tyler Warren is.
That's right.
I like Ogletree as a receiver. I do think he struggles sometime in pass pro, but Mo Alley Cox is a 6th offensive lineman. He's a 3rd tackle, wherever you want to put him. Greg, I'm really excited for what Daniel Jones can unlock opportunity to show the Indianapolis Colts and the NFL what he is capable of as a franchise tag franchise quarterback.
One thing we know, Will, is Daniel Jones is a professional. We should have known that he'd go in and take that playbook and have it be ready by camp and ready to go. And I still think that there's a pretty low ceiling on Daniel Jones. I don't see him as a Super Bowl quarterback, but he's going to win you some games, I'll tell you that. And he's not a bad franchise quarterback to have if your goal is to make the playoffs every year and not to win championships. But Will, let's play a little Greg versus Will versus the world, and I'm going to ask you a question. Will Daniel Jones start more or fewer than 11 and a half games this year?
Greg, it's an interesting question because he's played 7 seasons, and 4 of those seasons he's played more than 11 games. One of those was right at 11. And then in 3 of those seasons, he's played less. Now, one of those was the Giants when they were planning on releasing him the year that he went to Minnesota and was inactive as their 3rd-string quarterback. So I don't necessarily know if it's fair. That was a franchise decision.
But is that not also a possibility this year?
It's not a possibility. I expect him to play more. I think we saw him be a franchise quarterback. He played exactly 13 games last year. I think, to me, a number that feels right is probably 15. I think there's, in any season, you have to expect your quarterback to probably miss a game. Now, that's the modern NFL. 10 years ago, we weren't saying that. Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, if they could walk, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, those are quarterbacks that if they were healthy, or they
the over-under would have been 15 and a half. Like Peyton Manning.
But now I think teams are a lot more, let's say, careful to put a injured quarterback out on the field, especially if mobility is taken away. They just don't flat out do not do it anymore because it's such a sack risk and an injury risk from defensive linemen and linebackers. But I think he plays more.
I'm going a whole different direction. Does he make it through the season? Because if the Colts are 2-6, what's the point in continuing to throwing him out there? We've got a backup that we really like, who we'd like to see. You said there's no chance they move on from him. Most of the quarterbacks this year that are released at the end of this year, right now, the franchise is not expecting that they're not good enough. That's what happens. And it's possible that Daniel Jones on a repaired Achilles isn't good enough. Of course it is. Is it possible that he never fully recovers from the Achilles? Probably not. And those are my questions, so I'm going to go under.
I guess it depends on what your outlook of the season is. My outlook is this offense is good enough to win. I said
we're going to talk about receiver coming up here in a minute.
Well, we are, but everything outside of the receiver room is pretty good. Pretty elite, I would say. Pretty elite. And, you say, is Daniel Jones good enough to win you a Super Bowl? I would say no. However, I think his ceiling is still higher than that. Because then how many quarterbacks can win you a Super Bowl, Greg?
Fair.
Like I'm just curious. Like
Absolutely.
How many quarterbacks going into the season? I mean, obviously we have the same.
Okay. My philosophy is Super Bowl or bust. Every year.
We've
won one, so making the playoff matters not at all to me. So I'd rather go 4-13 and have a shot at a franchise quarterback or something like that rather than rolling with a middling guy. I'd rather roll with Anthony Richardson than a guy. And I'm not saying Daniel Jones can't, if everything went perfectly, win you a Super Bowl. But again, with that wide receiver room and that defense, they're not winning a Super Bowl.
Is Daniel Jones better than Sam Darnold?
Yes.
Is Daniel Jones better than Jalen Hurts?
Close. I'd probably rather have Hurts' skills than Jones's, but it's close.
Then he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. Because both those guys have won Super Bowls.
Fair enough. Speaking of elite, Will, we definitely have an elite running back and now have him for even longer. Jonathan Taylor has been signed to a long-term deal. Your thoughts on that?
I like it. I think you have to pay your players. He's been awesome. I thought the way that he handled the last contract extension with Anthony Richardson's rookie year looming with Shane Steichen's first year as a head coach was unprofessional. I understand he had to take a stance for running backs getting paid, but at the same time, it was just bad optically, and it just led to, I don't know, a painted view on him as a player. And I feel like he's been so good that we've kind of moved away from that. I appreciate the professionalism and how we handled this contract extension. I think it's good enough probably to leave him as a Colt forever. At this point, I feel like he's a one-helmet guy, and he probably should be. He's that good of a player.
All right, then let me ask the Greg versus Will question. Jonathan Taylor, 2.5 more years as a Colt, over or under?
Over, because I don't think a team will take on his contract. Nobody's going to trade for his contract at this point because he's owed so much money. And I know that there was some guaranteed money up front that did help with that. And, the incentive base, he's still going to be a big cap hit. Most teams, if they think they're on the verge, I don't see them probably having enough room for a $21 million quarterback, if I'm being completely honest with you. So I think that he stays with the Colts because his contract is difficult to get rid of, and it's difficult for a team in November when the trade deadline is to take on that contract.
I love Jonathan Taylor. Last year was phenomenal. One of the best running back seasons in Colts history. He is a top 3 running back in Colts history, and that includes the Baltimore Colts and Lydell Mitchell, one of the all-time greats. Already. I mean, you could argue that he's already as good as Edgerrin James was as a Colt. But I'm not sure you pay old running backs. And I'm not sure it ends well. And I hope he's a Colt for life, and I hope it ends great, and I hope it ends with him raising the Lombardi Trophy as the best running back in the league. But when's the last time we saw that? An elite running back was the reason that a team won a Super Bowl. It's been a long time. And
maybe make the argument that Kenneth Walker,
not the reason that they were in the Super Bowl.
Good.
Okay.
The reason they
when was the last time a team was in the Super Bowl because they had elite running backs? It's been a long time.
The Eagles and Saquon Barkley.
Fair enough. That was the last time, but I'm not even sure you could argue that was the reason that they were there, although you could argue that it was. Anyway, I'm going to take the under just based on those factors. And again, I really hope it works out well. I'm sorry I'm such a pessimist on the Colts right now. I just do not like the direction. And I love the team, but don't like the direction.
I get what you're saying. I understand the hesitancy. Now, what I'm going to ask, and I feel like I've asked this probably a couple times on the show again, but if we have a new listener, I want them to hear it. What do you think is the strength of Jonathan Taylor's game?
Elusiveness.
Okay. Do you think vision?
Oh, absolutely.
See, I think those are intangible.
He's got an A-. Just talking about the history of great running backs. A-, elusiveness, a B+ vision, I would say, yes. Those are two of his elite skills for sure.
The vision will not go with age. Now, the elusiveness, it definitely can. However,
it's also very fast for a running back.
His inline speed is incredible. And I think that's going to stay there. I think that he's going to have a career similar to Derrick Henry, to be completely honest.
I hope so.
I think that there have been a couple of years.
I doubted Derrick Henry too. So
he's been banged up. I mean, you make the argument Saquon Barkley is an older running back. Christian McCaffrey is an older running back. These are running backs that have aged really well.
Some do.
So I think this new era of running back is good enough.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, he's going to be 29, 30.
It's a little less violent game than it used to be.
I think at 30, you have to reevaluate, obviously, and see where he's at. But I think we're still in prime. 27 to 29 is still prime for a running back. I think we're fine.
Question number 3 here on Greg versus Will versus the world on the Colts Report. Debating questions about Colts camp, and the elephant in the room is the lack of wide receivers. Will, I think you and I agree that it was probably a mistake to get rid of Michael Pittman. It was now Alec Pierce's. Now he's injured and probably be back for the regular season, but we don't know. Still not participating. My question to you is, will the Colts upgrade to a starting wide receiver before the season begins in trade or someone getting cut and adding?
Before I answer that, I do want to go, and I want to say I don't think letting Pittman walk was a mistake. I know it was a mistake. And
I agree.
They're going to reap what they sow this season with...
The only argument I'd make is that he's so violent and he loves contact that I'm worried about his long-term health, especially with that back injury.
Could be, but he's a dog and you die on the
dog.
And yeah, he is a dog.
We'll miss him.
No, I don't think they do. I think they go and probably get a receiver. I don't think they get a starting caliber receiver. They have two of them. If Pierce is healthy, Pierce and Downs, fine 1-2 combination. I don't love that Ashton Doolin's probably going to be our starter, or Nick Westbrook and Keeney is going to be a starter on the right side of the offense. We'll see. Time will tell. This is kind of Ballard's thing. He kind of loves to come in. We love our guys. We don't really want to make any additions. I don't really know that there's anybody on the market that's so much better than Nick Westbrook and Keeney at this point that it makes a ton of difference. This was an issue that needed to probably be addressed in the draft or in free agency with, the tune of a smaller contract. They obviously paid Alec Pierce a lot of money. And so when you do that, when you make that decision, then you have to, make the offense feed through him. We'll see if he's able to do that, Greg. But I feel like coming into the year, this wide receiver room's got a lot of question marks. And I think they're really going to have to depend on Tyler Warren to be their, I think, wide receiver 1 from the tight end position.
Absolutely. I agree with you. They're not going to do anything. If Alec Pierce is injured, they probably go pick up a veteran who we've heard of who comes in for a couple, 3 weeks.
Calvin Ridley.
This is typical of what Ballard has done in the past. And I don't expect him to make any right decisions. That's for sure. That's not my expectation. He does make some, but that's not my expectation now. My expectation for Kevin Pritchard is usually to make the right move. My expectation for Chris Ballard is to usually not.
I think it's disappointing because like I throw the Calvin Ridley and like he's obviously, on the Titans roster, but like he seems like a guy like that would probably be a good fit in terms of if you were able to swing a small trade. I doubt they're gonna do an in division trade before the season starts. Maybe
They don't think he's good enough anymore.
they signed Wan'Dale Robinson. They drafted Carnell Tate. Like they clearly aren't too high on him anymore. I mean, why would you bring in two receivers to Colts Report? That's just a receiver to me that I feel like would fit the vertical threat that Alec Pierce does if you needed a 3 or 4 week stopgap, and who also is a veteran wide receiver who could run the whole route tree if you needed him to be your wide receiver on the other side.
Last question, Will, and this may be the most important one. Question 4 on Greg versus Will versus the world on the Colts Report. Turning our attention to the defense. A couple of rookie linebackers are getting a lot of attention at camp. C.J. Allen, Bryce Boettcher, both looking good, both vying for starting positions. So my question, Will, is will either one of them be first-team all-rookie defense this year?
No. I think that the linebacker position is just too competitive. Obviously, you got Sonny Styles, who I expect to be potentially an all-pro. I think he's that good. We're talking 6'5", 245, an absolute stallion.
Still another spot.
State. Yeah, I mean, Arvell Reese, are they going to consider him an edge? Are they going to consider him a linebacker? I think that's probably up for debate. I think Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas, who I thought was a first-round talent, obviously gets drafted in the second round. I feel like you have the conversation as Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. Is he good enough? He seemed the most NFL ready, probably just with his age, maturity, and size. I thought his floor was probably higher than not Styles or Reese. I think both of them. Anthony Hill Jr., but I think his ceiling was probably the lowest athletically, just with what he was given. There's going to be
pretty sure thing.
I think C.J. Allen's going to be a great green dot. I think he's going to be a very good rookie for this Indianapolis Colts team. I don't think that he's probably going to be better than the 4 I just mentioned as a rookie.
I mean, a lot of it comes down to chance. Do they make the big plays? Do they get the opportunities to make the big plays in the big spots? But they're going to get their opportunities. So I'm going to say that one of them will. I like both of them, man. I think they're both going to get a lot of reps on defense. Oh, that's where our hope is in this defense, Will, because it could get bad in that front 7 if they're not.
I agree. I don't feel like they draft Allen where they did unless they're really confident that he's a stud. Because I feel like there was so much debate about that linebacker room that if they didn't feel like he was going to be good enough for their offense through the draft process, that they don't move up.
Do I need to go through a list of linebackers that Chris Ballard's drafted that haven't worked out?
Well, but I also will say that there have been a few that really have worked out.
Yeah, especially Darius Leonard.
I would argue that Bobby Okereke he's a starting NFL linebacker.
Fair.
At what point, is the expectation? Not every draft pick's going to be an all-pro, but at what point is a starting linebacker at the NFL level for 6 to 8 years not good enough in terms of draft? We'll see with C.J. Allen.
Rioba helped your franchise, not another franchise.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there has to be some conversation with development of linebackers as well. You draft these raw, talented, athletic linebackers, and you're not forming them into what they are. I mean,
but we like both of these guys before the draft. Well, I hope this season goes way better than I expect, but everybody go back. You can hear our predictions. Will thinks that Colts are going to either be in the playoffs or fighting for a playoff position on the last day. He's actually he and Dave are talking about going to Cleveland for a January game. Might have playoff implications in it.
We'll see. It'd be really cool if that Week 18, Jacksonville Colts was for the division. It'd be really cool if that game was for that, potentially a Saturday night game, get an extra primetime game. Though they, of course, probably lose that because that's what they do.
Thanks so much to Will for the kind of double episode there, doubling up on the Colts Report, and Greg versus Will versus the world, a full 3rd season coming up on the Central Indiana Sports Report. beginning a week from Monday. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. And I love you, Susie.